Hi, I'm Mark from Mark of the Cyberbeast, and this week we're here with Jeff. We're going to ask him some questions. He's from Oliver's Metal Polishing. As you know, we just did the mirror polishing on my Cybertruck. We've got a bunch of questions for him. I know the number one question you guys have, how much does it cost? We're not going to string you along through the whole episode. We'll get to that in the first couple questions, but then we're going to talk to him really more about the details of it, show some video of how it was really done, and have him explain it a bit. And it's a beautiful day here in February. We're on the Intracoastal Waterway, had some boat traffic going by. So we're just going to start off by talking with Jeff from Oliver's Metal Polishing. He's actually in Conway, South Carolina, which is right next to Myrtle Beach. We're right here in the Grand Strand. First question I have for you, Jeff, how long have you been doing this for?
I've been doing this for about 4.5 years now, but it has been a jam-packed 4.5 years. I've done all kinds of work.
Now, you've actually, one of the questions I had was some of the strangest work and longest jobs you've done. And I guess the first question is going to be, what's the longest single job that you had?
The longest job I've ever done was probably last year. It lasted about a month, maybe a month and a week. And it was a large tanker truck. It's 3,700 gallons. It's about 40 years old. And it was rough, but it was well worth the results.
And also too, you've done some kind of different things you've polished. I know you polished trucks, you polished elevator doors. Is there something that's just unique that's kind of you probably will never do again?
Ooh, I don't know about never do it again, but I'd do just about anything. I've done anywhere from stainless vats for Kellogg's, the cereal company, the Cybertruck, of course, that tanker, and mainly it's a lot of trucks, a lot of wheels on trucks, but I'll do just about anything.
And it seems like, you know, the trucking is kind of how this whole thing started. And as we mentioned, the Cybertruck being a truck, a lot of people forget that tonneau cover goes up and you've got a full bed back there. But you've actually, when you did our truck, you've got a trailer and you've got the great logo on it and everything. So you travel to certain jobs too, correct?
Oh yeah, I travel pretty much up and down the coast, maybe inland a little bit. I've been out to Kentucky before, but it all depends on the work you have. As long as it's 2, 3, 4 days of work, I'll go just about anywhere.
And for those of you who have actually paid attention to our mirror polish, it was about a 4-day job. I was the one who disassembled the fenders and reassembled them without any spare parts, which I pat myself on the back for that one because usually there's 1 or 2 spare parts. But anyway, we've got a bunch of other questions for you, Jeff, but these guys are chomping at the bit. They want to know, what does something like this cost, and not only if you travel to them, but also if they came to you, because I mentioned the video is kind of kidding around, but I really wasn't kidding. Come drive your Cybertruck to South Carolina, drop it off with you, get an Uber to the hotel, stay with your family in Myrtle Beach for the week, and then go home with a nice shiny Cybertruck. So if you want to share with them, you know, kind of your pricing on this probably help them decide if they should go with a wrap or this.
Yeah. So basically they're going to start out at about $4,500, and that's going to be the full thing, polished, disassembled, all that stuff, and taped off for protection. And if I'm going to come to you, it's probably going to be about $500 to $1,000 extra, and that's going to be 4 to 5 days of work out there. So the truck will have to be made available for those 4 to 5 days.
Great. And that's, you know, pretty important because a lot of these guys will, and we've got a boat going by, a guy doing some fishing. But we've got some people who've had wraps done, and you know, a couple of things. And I'm not disparaging wraps by any means because I almost wrapped my truck. But the wraps ballpark around $2,500, and I guess, you know, the thing I have with them is if a shopping cart gets dinged in the door, you're going to have a bit of a scratch. Now the stronger, more durable ones, the 3M finishes, are really going to be self-healing and impervious to that, for those of you who know the differences. But you know, that's going to run you anywhere from $5,000 to $7,000 for those 3M wraps. So this kind of is good. And then if you get tired of this polish, you can always put a wrap on top of it later. But I guess the care of this, some people, you know, we're kidding around. We talked about just light soap and water, but maybe a year or two from now, if it's not looking as shiny, you've got some suggestions?
Oh, yeah, after about a year, 2 years, depends on where you go and everything and how you upkeep it. But generally, I'd recommend a repolish, but you wouldn't be looking at that same price tag. It would be considerable amount cheaper. And as for before that year, I would say a light soap. Stay away from any acid products, any kinds of heavy degreasers. You're going to want to keep that wax on from the compounds I use. But yeah, generally about a year, year and a half, I would recommend to have it repolished.
And that's really just probably the last step, the finishing.
It would just be that one single step to finish it back up.
And that's and we're going to talk more about those different steps on that. It's just a kind of interesting process we're going to go into for sure. So one thing I know people are wondering is, because this is your first Cybertruck, and we sure hope this isn't your last, okay? And was it fun?
Oh, it was very fun. It was definitely something to break up the monotony of trucks.
Well, you keep saying that, but these are trucks. I know, I'm only kidding. The big trucks, the semi-trucks.
The big trucks.
So, with this stainless steel that's on it, this is part of the alloy that was used from the SpaceX technology. Was there anything about this stainless steel that was different than the other stainless steel you've worked with?
I definitely would say I'd prefer this stainless steel. It seems like it cuts a little bit quicker, a little bit better. And compared to other stainless, usually you'll have to sand stainless a little bit, but this cut out just fine and finished up amazing.
Were you scared when you first started this project?
It was a little nerve-wracking at first, but once I started on it, it just eased into it, and it was just like anything else, just cruise right through it.
It's metal, right? Just because it's a Cybertruck doesn't make it anything special, even though we think it's special. Now, you own a diesel truck.
I do.
But there's no hate for the Tesla or the electric vehicles, right?
Oh, of course not. As long as they're polished.
So no haters here, no rolling coal on us. So Jeff, when you did this truck, what did you learn specifically from doing this experience of the Cybertruck?
Ooh, well, I'm always learning, of course. So I definitely learn a little bit better control of the tools, because you want the passes to be very, very thin, and you also want to do your increments about a 1/4 inch. But really, it's all just adding to the practice of the process.
There is one thing that I have to say is the patience to do this. So theoretically, if you had the steps to do this and you had the material, you can do this yourself. But you have to understand there's a certain mindset to doing this, and there is a lot of patience involved. In fact, we're going to show some video. And as you can see, this is really him going back and forth at such a slow, methodical pace and a uniform pace. Because what happens, I know, because backstory, and Jeff knows a little bit about this, and I'm not sure if everyone in the audience does, is I was waiting for our appointment, and I just wanted this shiny look. So I went ahead and got a wheel, got some compound, and I went to do it myself. And look, I'm a type A personality. I'm from New Jersey. I have ADHD. I got 3 strikes against me. So I'm going across, and it just, and then I'm watching the videos online. So these guys are going really super slow. So I'm going real slow in certain sections. And then I keep seeing myself go faster and faster. I can't stay uniform. I noticed in the videos that we recorded the uniform speed going back and forth. And as you said, going up 1/4 inch intervals and increments, and going back and forth at a uniform speed, and sometimes have to go back and forth over the same area, multiple passes, especially in the first stage. And we're going to go into these stages, the cutting stage and so forth, the coloring, the polishing. But it is very much a learned experience that it's practiced. You don't just become patient like this, right?
No, definitely not. It is definitely years and years of practice. It is It is all on the job learning, and it's practice. It's a long time, a lot of monotonous work, but it's worth it.
Now, one of the things too, you can compare this to is like sanding hardwood floors. For those of you who may have had them done for your home or do them yourself, there's just a certain process where you're going over it in a slow pace, and you have to do it so uniform, so the whole flooring ends up looking as one and not just blotched pieces, because you do a section at a time and then do another section at a time, then there's a line differentiating them, so you have to work that all in and make sure that they all look the same. And by the way, before I forget, and I apologize not mentioning this earlier, we are going to have your phone number below as well as all your contact information, so people do want to contact you and ask you questions that we're not going to answer here, then we can. Hopefully they caught some fish over there. Alrighty. Now, one of the things we talked about when I first reached out to you is about the process you would use. And you had told me that there's actually multiple ways that you can do this metal polish. Because I know some people have used sanders, an actual sandpaper, and you said, no, you're just going to use a wheel. And now some people now are just using the wheel. They're not using sandpaper. Can you give us a little background about that?
Yeah, so one of the ways to actually polish stainless is to sand it all the way up to maybe about 12,000 grit, and then you would go to a polishing paste. I've never done it that way. I've always used the wheels. It works a lot faster. But generally it's done with 1, 2, 3 wheels, and that's the airway buffing wheels. And you'll start with your cut, and your cut will be your preliminary polish. And that's going to bring out your major shine to it.
Now let's pause there for a second. So that cut portion, that's the one where if we saw the videos, which we'll probably have here right up here. And that's actually just going back and forth, and you really it brings out a shine, but it also kind of, you see like marks. It almost looks like you're making it worse, right?
Yeah. Generally, it'll look a little bit. It'll have a shine to it, but it'll be a little hazy. So that's going to be your cut, and then you would move to a color to actually get a little bit deeper clarity, and then you'll also minimize your hash marks.
Now let's talk about that, because as you're doing this, you can use these different wheels. You prefer Makita, and he's going 3,000-4,000 RPM. It's a heavy piece of machinery, so this isn't like you can just reach out with your arm and right. And that's why you had scaffolding for some of it, because you want to be in close to have control of it and not have it run away and damage anything. But that second one, you changed the wheel on, you changed the compound on. And then I noticed you weren't going back and forth as many times, as slow. It seemed like the first pass was really slow and arduous. That was just the most painful. The second one wasn't as bad, still slow and methodical, but you're saying that brings out, I guess, the color, and also you said the hash marks, right?
Yeah, so as you step up through the wheels and the compounds, you're going to minimize your hash marks, and that's mainly what polishers are going to be fighting throughout the process. So your hash marks are going to be all the little tiny scratches that end up in the material after each different compound you use. And that is what's really going to bring out the clarity. And also you'll catch those in the sun a lot. But every time you step up, you'll see them less and less. And every polisher is going to try to get all of that out to bring out the best shine.
And before we go talk about the third step, there's some inherent scratches and imperfections with the metal, because this isn't a DeLorean where that was the finish and they wanted to make it look pristine. This was a truck, and they were really just, it's a truck, and it's thicker stainless steel and so forth, and probably didn't have all the same exact smoothness as some of the maybe other, like a refrigerator. A refrigerator is going to be designed for the aesthetic, whereas this really kind of wasn't. And it's not that you can really tell, but it's only when you look at it and shine it. And the funny thing that I actually realized is I've never been incarcerated. Hopefully no one out there has been either. But when you go to jail, they give prisoners mirrors, but they don't want to give them glass because they can cut someone. So what they do is they polish stainless steel, and that becomes their mirror. So really, this is that same type of thing, except they make it, I guess, without the flaws that come in there from the factory, and smooth it out real well and make it look real good. Now that second step, that compound and the wheel you used, really kind of finished it out. It took that haze off of it, okay? And it's funny because if you watch the videos that we have here on it, and if you have it done on yours, you'll see the gentleman doing it, and you might be like, oh shit, what's he doing, right? And then the second step comes, and you're like, wow, actually looks really good. And then the third step, I want you to really talk about that, because that's what really kind of gives it that wow effect, right?
So that third step is going to be done with a flannel buffing wheel at a relatively low speed compared to the cut. And you're going to be running at about 1800 RPM, and that's just to really minimize those hash marks. And I also use a very fine compound to do that.
And so also too, it seemed like when you did that, it was really just making it shine as you went through. And it's kind of like, I guess, the final finishing look to it, right?
Correct. That would be the final step that you would do.
And then afterwards, there's a lot of this black soot that's going to be all over everywhere, and there's just no avoiding it. So we used an air compressor, right, and we blew it all off, and then I ended up coming home and just hosing it down and washing it off. But it was just so amazing how just hosing it down, it all comes off, and the truck looks so good, especially when it's wet, right? It just, the sunlight, the water, right?
Oh yeah, if they're wet, they look even better. But once the sun comes out, it'll look really good. And hopefully, you don't send me any bills or invoices for the tickets.
Yeah, you just gotta be careful. And so one of the things I know I mentioned to you was on the tailgate was my concern with someone behind me with headlights kind of reflecting back. So one of our vendors we get products from has a 3-headed Cyberbeast sticker that takes up a good portion of the tailgate. So we're going to put that right there in the middle, kind of make it a little safer for them. We were going to probably do something like this maybe on the beach or somewhere else. We really didn't know where to have it. It was kind of an overcast day, but we saw some boat traffic and we're like, it's still a nice day. It's just not sunny. It's a little overcast. So we just had to have it out here on the water, and I hope you guys appreciate the backdrop being a little bit different. It's not just in front of a truck, although that could have been good. We could have just sat on the tailgate and talked truck. But now the Cybertruck is going to be the last exoskeleton that Tesla creates. Elon mentioned that in the last earnings call, that this was going to be it. They did it, and I guess it was a lot of work. They used the analogy of the gull-wing doors for the Model X. Elon wanted the gull-wing doors. The engineers just shook their heads, and they did it because that's what he wanted, but there's not going to be another car with gull-wing doors. And the same thing, I think, happened with the exoskeleton. It's an arduous process. So this is going to be the only exoskeleton Tesla. And so doing this finish, I think it looks phenomenal. And Jeff, I know I kidded around with your wife about being patient, but it's true. We're going to be showing you videos of this, and I did time lapse, but the time lapse really doesn't do it justice. The fact that he's going back and forth, and again, that first step, just the speed he's going, and it's so consistent in small sections across a very big vehicle, but you broke it up into sections. You did the one side first, then you did the other side, kind of, you take the big bites first, and then you went ahead and did the front hood, and then the rear tailgate. If you've got multiple people, I'm sure you can just do the same step all the way across. One of the things I know you did is you taped up a lot of part of the truck, right?
Yeah, so the truck has a lot of sharper edges on it, and the buffing wheels actually get caught very easily on them, and you don't want that to run up and end up on the glass or any kind of plastic. It could possibly stay in the plastic or even break the glass if some of the metal parts of the grinders hit it. So we try our best to protect that and to be very careful around the edges.
So that's why we tell people, don't try this at home. You can try this at home, but just know I tried it at home, right? And it didn't look all that good, did it?
It looked pretty good for a first timer.
Not a finished product though.
Not a finished product. It had a little bit of a shine to it, more than usual, but it was okay.
I just couldn't wait. I wanted that look so badly. But and I guess if you ever do other Cybertrucks, maybe you do a meetup and you're doing a couple and you have some helpers. Because I know you taped off sections after you finished all three steps. Do you think maybe you do just one step at a time throughout the whole vehicle, or is that not really the best way you work?
I prefer to work in sections, so I'll do basically one panel at a time and then mask off that panel from the other panels, then move to the next one. That's how I like to do it.
And so, you mentioned these large tankers, right? And they really haven't had that much of a reflective effect on the drivers going the other way or alongside them. So I'm hoping this doesn't impede anyone as well, but we'll see. We'll see this summer in sunny South Carolina how that all works out. But do you have any questions for me, Jeff?
None that I can really think of. I just appreciate you giving me the opportunity to do it, and I'm hoping this isn't the last one that I do, and I'm looking forward to doing yours.
I'm counting that people out there are going to be asking questions. Again, we're going to have your phone number, some pictures and links to your pictures below. We've got video of all the work that you've done on my truck, and I only endorse someone I've used. I'm not going to endorse someone who I've not used, and that's why I reached out to a local person, Jeff, and maybe you're in Wyoming, okay, or somewhere just Jeff is just not going to drive to. I guess they can just reach out to a local polisher out there, right?
Oh yeah, I'm sure there's probably one or two polishers in your area that would touch something like this. I would definitely do your research first before you go call anyone. It is a rather expensive truck, and you don't want just anyone touching it. But as long as it's a good reputable polisher, I'm sure they can get the job done.
And honestly, how I found Jeff was I went to Google, looked around, and found he was the only metal polisher in my area. I looked at the pictures of his work. I went through the Google reviews, saw him on Facebook, and I was like, all right, let me call this guy up and talk to him. We met a few months back and felt confident enough. And if you do go to a polisher in your area and they've never done a Cybertruck and they're nervous, they can always reach out. You guys have a little bit of a network, right? You guys talk to each other and share information about different projects sometimes?
Oh yeah, definitely. I have a few people I talk to a lot. One is upstate North Carolina, the other is Greenville. Neither of them has done a Cybertruck yet, but I talk to all kinds of polishers across the country, and I generally stay away from the fly-by-night guys.
And that's one thing I know you told me about. There's a lot of fly-by-night guys because it's real. Look, for a couple $100, you get a wheel, right, and start going to work on these trucks. And this work, isn't exactly cheap. It's not, I wouldn't call it expensive, but if you get a quality person, you're going to pay what you do. Just like with an electrician or a plumber, they have those rates because they've done this for so long. They're trained on how to do this, and their work looks good. So again, I think after doing my botch job, I really saw the value. And you know what? Doing this yourself probably isn't going to be the best solution. And that's where, like I said, I think, it's pretty affordable to do. You do it one time. It looks good. And then, again, if you need a touch-up in a couple of years and just get the third step wheel, go right over it and just kind of make it shine a little bit. But, again, I know my wife will tell you, I was cleaning this thing like almost every week. Right, I'd be out there with my polisher and my barkeeper's friend, right, and polishing it all up, and then the Windex, and put my cyber wax on it. But with this compound, it actually embeds the protection right into the metal, because as we discussed, it actually cuts the metal, that first step. The second step colorizes it, and that really adds to the protection, and then that third step just kind of cleans it all up. So it's an art and a science, as we were talking earlier this week, of metal polishing. It's an art in its own right, and it's a science because it's metallurgy, right? So, Jeff, I had a great talk with you. It looks like another boat or two coming by. Looks like someone might be getting towed. So that'll be interesting to see what happened there when they come on by. But anyway, I want to thank you for your time, for your expertise, and talking to us today, because these guys had a lot of questions for you. Now, as you guys know, how do we always sign off? Like, comment, subscribe. We're going to see you guys again tomorrow. Mark of the Cyberbeast. So see you then.